Rebekah joins us now. Rebekah, during the presidential debate, Donald Trump repeatedly touted his good relationship with Vladimir Putin, insisting that the war in Ukraine would never have started if he was in power. You'd know better than anyone. Was he right?
Absolutely, 100% correct, James. And the reason is that Putin fears President Trump. He fears him because President Trump, despite the fact that he never disparaged Putin publicly, Trump pursued the most robust anti-Russia policy since Ronald Reagan. Specifically, President Trump took several policy measures that demonstrated to Putin that Trump understands his anti-U.S. warfighting strategy, which I described in the book at the unclassified level. For example, Trump stood up the U.S. Space Forces. The Russians stood up theirs in 2001. It took 18 years for the U.S. to stand up ours. The reason Trump did that is because it counters Putin's space warfare strategy. Trump also authorized the deployment of a tactical nuclear warhead, sea-launched, on a cruise missile, and that countered or at least mitigated Putin's nuclear strategy. So Putin knew he cannot mess with Trump.
But there was one interesting bit there during the debate, Rebekah, when Trump seemed to avoid saying whether or not he wanted Ukraine to win. And some people thought, gee, what does that mean here? Why is he being a little coy about this? What was your take? What's your assessment of that?
President Trump knows, just like the Pentagon knows, that the war is unwinnable for Ukraine. My intelligence analysis reveals that there's no military path to victory for Ukraine. Look, we wargamed back in the intelligence community a similar conflict, a direct U.S.-Russia kinetic conflict that grew out of a local conflict such as the one in Ukraine. And so the reason why there's no military path to victory for Ukraine is because the combat potential of Russia just overwhelmingly outweighs that of Ukraine. What is combat potential? It consists of military capability, the military hardware, manpower, and the economics, the defense economics, military-industrial complex. Putin transitioned his military and economy 7 years prior to the invasion. And the Pentagon itself considers Russia a near-peer competitor to U.S. military, meaning that it's on par with U.S. military. So what the Pentagon is trying to do is simply weaken Russia's military, using Ukraine as a human shield to protect NATO and the Europeans who refuse to pay for their own defense, even though I personally briefed NATO in 2013, just months prior to Putin's invasion of Crimea.
Indeed. I mean, it's interesting that strategic depth. If you go back to Napoleon, Russia has always had that to fall back on. But I want to go back to the debate also because everybody's talking about that this week. You've written a piece that's about to be published about how Putin has declared Kamala Harris, the winner in the debate over Donald Trump. Does this mean that the New York Times and CNN and everybody are all in the same camp as Putin here?
Well, Putin favors Kamala Harris to become U.S. president. Here's why. The Russian intelligence, just like U.S. intelligence, conduct foreign military leaders' profiles. They have profiled, the Russian intelligence did, Kamala Harris as vapid, unintelligent, and incompetent. They provide Biden as predictable, and they profiled Trump as unpredictable and very difficult to read and manipulate and outplay. And so that's why Putin wants Kamala. So he also wants to please Kamala and portray her as the winner in the debate. The Russian state media, which is almost exclusively controlled by the Kremlin, was exploding with coverage that was praising Kamala Harris today. They were talking about Harris establishing dominance and strategic initiative over Trump, and Trump having a bad night. But this is all because the Russians do want to see Harris in the White House and not Trump because they fear him.